All right, let's jump right into this. Today, I'm putting on my documentary filmmaker hat to launch a high-stakes investigation into one of the world's most heavily restricted, anomalous locations. We're looking at a geographical marvel that continually defies both modern geological science and human endurance, Mount Kailash. We're going to examine the empirical data, the startling physical anomalies, and the deep-rooted folklore surrounding this peak. Let's open the case file. Okay, let's dive into this massive contradiction. Picture this. Mount Everest, the tallest peak in the world, has been successfully summited over 7,000 times. Mount Kailash? It's a full 2,200 meters shorter, yet the number of modern climbers who have reached its peak is exactly 0. Not a single one. This glaring statistic is the absolute crux of our mystery. What unseen barrier exists here that constantly thwarts world-class mountaineers? To really understand this enigma, we need to map out the modern history of restrictions, kind of treating these dates like crucial evidence in our ongoing case file. In 1962, access fundamentally changed following the Sino-Indian War. Decades later, a pivotal 1999 Russian expedition brought back some truly bizarre biological data, which leads us right up to 2001 when China banned climbing entirely. And by 2015, even NASA's satellite observations were pulling up entirely unexplained visual phenomena. Now, that pivotal 1962 shift was absolutely steeped in geopolitical tension. Following the Sino-Indian War, 72,000 square miles of territory, including Mount Kailash, were lost. This actually sparked a fiery exchange in the Indian parliament. When then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru tried to downplay the loss by claiming the territory was completely barren land where not even a blade of grass could grow, parliamentarian Mahavir Tyagi furiously pointed to his own bald head and delivered a legendary retort: "Nothing grows here either. Shall we sever it?" It's a really stark reminder of the intense human conflict that dictates access to the peak to this very day. Section 1. The spiritual access. To truly investigate this mountain, we have to transition away from modern geopolitical borders and look closely at its profound spiritual gravity. Across diverse ancient traditions, Kailash is recognized as the axis mundi, literally the spiritual axis or spine of the universe itself. For Hindus, it's the physical abode of Lord Shiva and Parvati. In the Buddhist tradition, it's the residence of Demchuk, the deity of supreme bliss. And for Jains, this exact mountain is the revered site where the first Tirthankara attained enlightenment. For millennia, human beings have designated this specific geographical coordinate as a locus of supreme divine presence, undertaking grueling, sensory-rich pilgrimage circuits around its base just to be near it. And honestly, that reverence might just be tied to some incredibly terrifying physical anomalies. When Russian climber Sergei Sister attempted to approach the mountain's edge, he experienced a severe, sudden biological reaction. The exact moment he thought he could push forward, his heart rate inexplicably skyrocketed. He reported that all his energy simply vanished, as if drained by some unseen force. His vital signs only stabilized after he abandoned the climb and forced a rapid descent. So, was this simply a sudden bout of extreme high-altitude sickness? Or, as locals strongly believe, a physiological warning from the mountain itself? And Sister wasn't the only one thwarted. The data on legendary mountaineers failing here is just staggering. Reinhold Messner, a guy famous for conquering 14 massive peaks, outright refused to climb Kailash, honoring its perceived divine power, a decision that actually heavily influenced China's eventual climbing ban. In 2001, a Spanish team with official permission mysteriously failed to even lay a hand on the mountain. In fact, historical records suggest the only human to ever conquer the summit was the 11th century Tibetan monk Milarepa, who reportedly achieved the feat entirely through intense meditation, leaving zero physical trace behind. Section 2. Case files on physical anomalies. Let's shift our narrative into pure investigation mode and look at the baffling physical data reported by explorers. The 1999 expedition led by Russian scientist Ernst Moldashev brought back some shocking anomaly reports. First, they theorized the mountain is actually a massive, ancient, man-made pyramid structure. Second, they documented hearing unexplained acoustic whispers and the sound of falling rocks coming from inside the mountain at night. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is step 3, rapid biological aging. Team members reported their hair and nails grew at an impossible rate, equivalent to weeks of growth in just 2 days. One Siberian climber who interacted with them reportedly aged so rapidly he passed away from old age within a year. While critics demand empirical cellular evidence for this accelerated aging, these anecdotal accounts of extreme biological reactions remain firmly in our case files. And the environmental paradoxes extend right down to the base of the mountain. On one side, you have Lake Mansarovar, the world's highest freshwater lake. It's perfectly round, totally calm, life-giving, and beautifully reflects the sun. Pilgrims describe a profound sensory experience of peace simply standing near its waters. But right next to it, Rakshashtal, the world's highest saltwater lake. It's turbulent, entirely lifeless, and steeped in negative energy, traditionally believed to have been created by the demon king Ravana. How do two massive bodies of water in the exact same tectonic and climactic zone maintain totally opposite physical properties? Modern geological science is still grasping for answers on that one. Then there is the wild acoustic anomaly. As you approach the mountain, a distinct humming sound fills the air. Listeners have described it as everything from the sound of an airplane engine to the beat of a traditional Damaru drum, or even the continuous chanting of the divine syllable Om. Scientific investigators hypothesize this is simply the natural acoustics of melting ice, or perhaps deep resonant tectonic shifting beneath the mountain. But local pilgrims and explorers maintain the sound is just way too rhythmic and deliberate to be mere geology. And speaking of unbelievable coincidences, check this out. There is a fascinating geographic alignment surrounding the mountain, the number 6666. If you measure the distance from Mount Kailash to the mysterious monument of Stonehenge, it is exactly 6,666 kilometers. From Kailash to the North Pole, exactly 6,666 kilometers. And its distance to the South Pole is listed as a baffling 1,302 kilometers. This geographical map paints the mountain not just as a random peak, but as a mathematically precise node on our entire planet. Section 3. Yeti and Hidden Cities. Let's look downward, transitioning from geographic alignments on the surface to the deep folklore and biological mysteries rumored to exist at the mountain's base. According to ancient texts like the Vishnu Purana, and visually depicted in the famous paintings of Nicholas Roerich, deep beneath Kailash lies Shambhala. It's a legendary silent place, a hidden city, accessible only to the deeply enlightened. Folklore suggests this subterranean metropolis houses immortal beings like Hanuman, and is a hub of incredibly advanced technologies, including the capacity for teleportation and time travel. While science, of course, demands physical proof, the cultural impact of this hidden city drives millions of pilgrims to the region every year. Back above ground, the biological investigation focuses on the Yeti. The tension here between eyewitness accounts and empirical evidence is stark. Sightings by locals in Tibet and Nepal are incredibly frequent and consistent. In fact, the region has been seriously investigated by over 30 scientists looking for a potential snowman habitat. Yet, the stark scientific reality remains. There is a complete and total lack of human or hominid remains ever discovered in these snows. It is essentially a biological ghost story with zero physical evidence. Section 4. Modern Science versus Ancient Mystery. What actually happens when we bring the absolute cutting edge of modern technology to bear on these ancient mysteries? Let's move into the climax of our explainer. The Chinese government actually attempted to bypass the climbing ban by launching a high-tech helicopter expedition directly over the summit. And it was a total disaster. The exact moment they approached the peak, the weather violently and suddenly shifted, blinding them with heavy snow and lightning. Then, extreme localized magnetic fluctuations completely overrode and scrambled their standard compasses and gyroscopes. Finally, just like the climbers on the ground, the crew experienced rapid, uncontrollable heart rates. The mission had to be aborted, forcing a terrifying emergency descent. The mountain literally disabled modern aviation. Baffled by these ground and air failures, investigators turned to the ultimate vantage point, space. But even NASA's satellite imagery yielded bizarre results. In 2015, NASA captured imagery of the peak, and the natural shadows cast across the rock formations eerily assembled into the distinct, undeniable shape of a figure sitting in deep meditation. For millions worldwide, this space-age data simply validated ancient beliefs, viewing the shadow as Lord Shiva himself. And this brilliantly illustrates the constant collision of science and spirituality. Explorers report the mountain emits 7 distinct colors at night. This mesmerizing light show that NASA attributes to intense, fluctuating magnetic forces reacting with the atmosphere. Furthermore, when the sun sets, the shadows naturally form a perfect swastika, an ancient symbol of auspiciousness. And if you view the snow formations from the south, they perfectly trace the symbol for Om. Are these intense tectonic and magnetic forces physically shaping the snow and light? Or is the landscape intentionally mirroring sacred iconography? So what does this all mean? we reach the end of our case file with the ultimate question. The timeline is clear, the biological anomalies are documented, and modern instruments, from basic compasses to helicopters, have fundamentally failed to conquer this peak. Is Mount Kailash guarding a radical, undiscovered scientific anomaly involving extreme magnetics and geology, or is it fiercely protecting a divine secret? It really challenges us to accept that even in an age of high-tech satellites, some corners of our planet remain totally untamed. That is the unresolved enigma of Mount Kailash. Until next time, keep questioning the world around you.